Well, welcome back, and today what I'm going to be talking to you about is the Sadlak series of scope mounts. Now what I have here is what I consider to be the holy grail of the Sadlak mounts. Now their mounts are all mechanically the same, but they come in different versions. So they make an aluminum version, which is probably the cheapest bargain that you can get. They make the steel version, and then the steel airborne, and a titanium. And this one is a very rare one. This is a titanium airborne mount. This one here is a very, very expensive mount. They only did a limited run of these, of maybe like 25 or 50 of them or something like that. And this one happens to be serial number 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to inspect your receiver to make sure that it's in spec, and the Sadlak airborne mount will work for you. Okay, and we'll get into that. So what we have here is a standard stainless steel Sadlak airborne mount, and we're going to go ahead. I'm going to show you how to install this from start to finish. So the mount comes with a set of instructions and a couple of dowel pins that are precision ground to different sizes so that you can inspect the groove on your receiver. Okay, other tools you're going to need is a 3/32 roll pin punch, so make sure it's a roll pin punch and not just a flat one. Actually, a flat one will probably work for this application because we're just going to take the roll pin out. We're not going to put it back in. A 3/8 wrench, a very small hammer, and optional if you have a torque wrench with a 3/8 socket head adapter on it. Okay, so first thing I'm going to cover is removing the cartridge clip guide. Now, there's only one other video that I know of that shows the Sadlak scope mount being mounted, and the first step that this guy does, the first mistake he makes, bless his heart, is he drives the cartridge clip guide out the wrong way. Okay, now the cartridge clip guide was manufactured, if it's manufactured to spec, it's actually tapered. It's wider on this end and narrower on this end. So if everything's made right, if both these parts are made right, this part should only slide in from the bolt stop side. Okay, so what you'll notice is I'm going to slide this particular one in, and it gets a little tighter. Okay, and then I'm going to need a small hammer. So this is perfect. This is actually the perfect kind of fit that you want for this, for the cartridge clip guide to the receiver. And then you'd have to tap it to get the holes to line up. So the other person, the other video I saw, I got a hammer and he basically tapped this off until it came out this side. Now, that could be really bad because this is considered one of the weak points of the M14 receiver. So if you're not careful, you can break this and you ruin your receiver. You won't even have a ledge for your rear sights, and you're going to have to basically go with, it's going to be scrapped, really. There's other things you can do but let's not go down that road. So anyway, first step, okay, you're going to get your 3/32 punch, and you're going to stick it in the hole down here, and you're going to go ahead and tap your roll pin out from the receiver side to this side until the roll pin comes out all the way. Okay, and then from there you're just going to go ahead and tap your cartridge clip guide out that direction. Now again, exercise caution. If it went in, it should come out, and it needs to come out that direction and that direction only. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to inspect this groove here. Okay, this will either make or break your scope mount installation. GI receivers, GI M14 receivers, were held to pretty tight tolerances, and it really wasn't an issue for the Sadlak because the Sadlak is a proven scope mount, and it was actually adopted by the military for certain rifles. Now, they didn't have the factor of these being out of spec, but what they did is they're offering an inspection service and a modification service. And as a matter of fact, the mount that I'm going to use, we're going to install it on another receiver that has an out of spec groove. So I'm going to show you this one. I actually haven't measured this one, but I assume it's going to be good. So there's 2 pins. There's a large and a small diameter pin. So what you want to do is you want to put the pin in right underneath the mounting screw hole. Okay, now the small pin, it should fit in there and it shouldn't wiggle. Okay, and it shouldn't bottom out. As a matter of fact, if I shine a light this direction, I can see light coming through on this side. So it's inside this groove, but it's not bottomed out. Now if it does bottom out, what they've done is they've included a larger pin that will go in here that you can use as well. But if the receiver groove is close to inspec, go ahead and use the small pin. Alright, so the whole receiver inspection, what you're going to do is you're going to collect 4 dimensions, and they've included a spreadsheet, or not a spreadsheet, they've included a worksheet where you put measurement A here, B here, and subtract the 2 to get dimension 1. Then dimension 2 is the groove depth from here to the bottom, and then dimension 3 is the groove width at the bottom, and then dimension 4 is the grooved width at the top. Okay. Alright, so I'm over here on my desk, and I found it easier that I can just take these measurements this way. So again, measurement A, you're going to put the pin in right here, and you're going to try your best to keep this square against this surface here. Okay. And you're going to measure right over the scope mounting hole. So this particular receiver measures at 1.763. Okay. So we're going to take the pin out now, and we're going to measure this again. And we've got 1.682. So I'll put that into my spreadsheet. Okay. Now this particular receiver checks in at 81 thousandths. The spec is 79 thousandths to 83 thousandths. So it's pretty much right in the middle of the spec as far as the pin protrusion the way it should be. The next dimension we're going to measure is the depth of the groove using the depth feature of your calipers. You're going to put it in there real carefully. It barely fits in there, or at least mine does. And you're going to try to go in straight until you just touch the receiver. And I come up with 69 thousandths. So I put that in my little spreadsheet here, and that comes in as pass. The minimum spec for this is 62 thousandths, the maximum is 72 thousandths. So dimension 3 is the bottom groove with the pointy end of your calipers. Make sure you don't have any debris in there either, because that can kind of throw you off. Looks like this one here is coming in right around 72 thousandths. So I'll put that in my spreadsheet. 0.072, and that comes up as a pass. The minimum spec for this is 70 thousandths. The maximum spec is 78 thousandths. So dimension 4 is going to be the width of the top of the groove. And again, this is, you kind of just have to get a feel for this and kind of eyeball it. It helps you if you have better lighting. Mine's coming in around 149 or 150. And 149.149 happens to be the minimum spec. The maximum for this width is 153 thousandths. So this one here is right just in spec on the minimum side. So this particular receiver, Buell Defense receiver, checks good on all dimensions. Now we'll go ahead and check a different receiver from a different manufacturer. Alright, so with this one I'm going to put the pin in, and we're going to get this measured. So this particular one measures about 1.840. So I put that into my spreadsheet already. Take the pin out again. Now we'll measure over this point. 1.743. There, 1.743 for the width of this receiver. And so dimension 1 ends up being 97 thousandths, which fails. The maximum size for this particular for this measurement is 83 thousandths. So it's quite a bit over. So dimension 2, the depth of the receiver groove. So we'll go ahead and measure this one. So right now I've got 46 thousandths. So I put that into my spreadsheet. And this fails as well. The minimum depth on this is 62 thousandths. The maximum is 72 thousandths. So this comes up well short of the depth. So Dimension 3 is the bottom of the groove with the pointy end there. About 81 thousandths on this one. Which again fails. The maximum width on that is 78 thousandths. And the minimum width 70 thousandths. So this one, the bottom of that groove is too wide. And we'll go ahead and look at the top of the groove. 125, so 0.125. 0.125. So again, the top of this groove also fails as well. The minimum spec for this one with the small pin is 149 and the maximum is 153. Now what I did is I had my spreadsheet here. So I've got my spreadsheet here that I made. I put in all kinds of formulas and stuff. So when I do this particular one, I change the pin size here, 141 or 156. The small pin is 141 thousandths, the large pin's 156 thousandths. So if I change that on my spreadsheet, then all these dimensions change. So the specs that I just rattled off to you are, or at least for dimension A, those are going to change with the pin size. So just use the instructions, and so anyway, that's what I ended up doing just because it seemed to be easier for me to track the measurements. But again, for you guys, go ahead and just fill out the spreadsheet, measurement A, B, dimension 1, 2, 3, and 4, and specify the pin diameter. So what you can do, you fill all this in. If your receiver's out of spec, okay, put your name, address, etc., etc., etc. So what you do is once you have all this stuff filled out, once you've filled out all that information, you go ahead and send this back to Sadlak, and what they'll do is they'll modify the groove to match your receiver. So even though your receiver is not made to GI spec, they'll make it to your receiver for about $50 plus return shipping at the time of this video, which is January 1st, 2018. So again, at the end of the day, it's going to cost you about, you know, $60 or so. So I think mine was $58 to have this one completely remachined and sent back. And then from that point, you can go ahead and install this on your out-of-spec receiver.